All right, welcome back to the program. We have shifted gears to the health segment, health and lifestyle. It is Wednesday, and you know how we do it each and every week here. It's all about different conditions and helping you live a better, a healthier lifestyle. And today we want to talk about Parkinson's disease. We know that the 11th of April every year is actually the day when we are marking the World Parkinson's Disease Day. A lot of awareness creation is usually concentrated around this particular time. But like I always say, these things, we should do them throughout the year, not just on the days that we are marking these annual celebrations. And here we have a panel of three, somebody who has lived this experience and understands what it means to be able to have Parkinson's disease. And we also have a caregiver with us who's going to take us into his world and help us understand how it has been. And of course, a medical expert. So allow me introduce my panel for the program this particular morning. From the far right, we are having this morning George Muraya. George Muraya is a Parkinson's disease warrior. Asante, George, for creating time for us.
Thank you for the invite.
Karibu sana. And we also have George's daughter, Stephanie Muraya, the caregiver. Thank you, Stephanie, for accompanying Dad, today to just come and talk about his experience and just telling us as a family how this has changed your life and what you have learned from this particular condition. Asante. And we have with us this morning Dr. Sylvia Mbugu. She's a consultant neurologist at Aga Khan University Hospital. Asante, Daktari.
Thank you very much.
All right. So usually, let's begin from a more general view of the subject that we're discussing, the World Parkinson's Disease Day. And let's not even just focus on the day. Let's talk about this particular condition and as an expert, what this day means for you. Why is it essential that at such a time we should have this very pivotal conversation, and what are probably some of the key areas that you'd like us to focus on as we mark this, this important day?
Thank you very much for having me on the show, and it's quite a privilege to be able to speak about Parkinson's, which is very key and central to my heart. So we have World Parkinson's Day on the 11th of April. Yeah. And why is it important to talk about Parkinson's? We are now focusing globally on what is called healthy aging. In the past, all these diseases that used to affect our elderly patients, our geriatric patients, were thought to be part of normal aging, but now we know it's not. Because what do you expect, how do you expect yourself to look like when you age? You should be able to do your own activities, feed yourself, clothe yourself, be independent, not have to rely on others. But now Parkinson's, dementia, and other neurodegenerative conditions are causing that to be a lot of challenge for many of our elderly patients. So right now, globally, it's estimated that about 10 million people are living with Parkinson's disease. And this is projected to rise to about
like the entire
world.
Yeah, okay.
And this is projected to rise to about 20 million by the year 2050. Parkinson's, as George and his daughter here will tell us, is something that really affects everything you do. It's a condition whereby you lose a chemical called dopamine in the brain. We have dopamine nerves, neurogenic transmitters, and nerve terminals in our brains. Now, because of these conditions, they begin to break down and you lose out on your dopamine. Dopamine basically is a hormone that makes you love your life, makes you want to move, to dance, to eat, to interact with people, and it makes you very flexible. So what happens when you develop Parkinson's, when you start to lose your dopamine reserves? Basically, you become very slow. So your family members and your friends realize that before, where they would walk with you, you're now falling behind when it comes to walking and running. For instance, in Karura, you become very stiff and you start to stoop forward. Your posture becomes bent and you find that you start to shake.
All right.
So the first thing that most people notice, and the family members, is that you develop a shake. And many times, if it's a pure Parkinson's, it starts on one side.
All right. I'd like you to take us, bit by bit, when you get to the nitty-gritties of the condition. But, just basically, you have shared with us some interesting numbers on the global perspective on how many people have this particular condition, and you're putting it at 10 million, projecting that the number could rise to 20 million by the year 2050. And George, for you, these are not just numbers. This is a life that you have experienced as a Parkinson's disease warrior. People would like to know more about you, you know, and your life as a Parkinson's disease warrior. And I understand it's your birthday today?
Yes, it is.
It is your birthday today?
Yes.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy birthday, coming from me and the entire crew here on Citizen Television. I wish I knew how to sing. I would do that. Maybe by the end of the show, who knows? But tell me a bit about George and your journey with Parkinson's disease.
Okay. As you heard, this is my 62nd year. Second year.
Second year.
62nd.
Oh, you are 60. This is 62nd year.
Yes, I'm 62 years old now.
Okay.
And I started living with Parkinson's 12 years ago.
12 years ago. That is when you started working with this condition.
Yes.
Yeah.
It all started when people started noticing my movement. I had become slow. And and I could not perform some other duties.
So 12 years ago, that's when you became understanding that you started becoming slow in certain activities and doing some things.
Yeah.
Probably what did you initially think it was before you got your diagnosis?
I thought it was just normal for me. I did not understand what they were saying. But then, as time went by, it became more serious. I could not do what I used to do.
So were you working at that time?
I was,
and you know, those activities that you're saying you couldn't do, what is it? How was the shift like?
Like writing, changing my clothes, and performing minor duties. At that time I was working, and my performance in work deteriorated. And I was forced to resign. In 2018, I was forced to resign by my employer.
All right. All right. I'll come back to you shortly, just so you can tell me a bit about, you know, how it went from your life changing and you not being able to do certain things to when it was confirmed it was Parkinson's. But just also to weigh in on what Dad is saying, Stephanie. He's saying it was 12 years ago that he started noticing a bit of change in what he could and what he couldn't do. Tell us a bit about, you know, what you noticed as a family, the people around him, what you noticed with him, what was different, and what were your initial suspicions on what it could be and how you managed at the initial stages before you actually knew what it was exactly?
All right. Actually, it's 13 years ago.
Okay.
So this is the 13th year.
Okay.
As he mentioned, we started noticing changes on his mobility. He became a bit slower, even when like just doing the normal duties, it was a bit slow. He used to be very active after work. Maybe you'd do some certain household chores and household duties. And during that year, the year that he was diagnosed with Parkinson's was the same year also my mom was also going through another illness. So the focus was on my mom because she was undergoing, she had cancer. So we really did not notice a lot of symptoms, that he was
on his side.
On his
because
side,
everyone
everything,
was
yeah,
focusing on Mom.
yes.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, my mom passed away during that year. So after that, that's when we started noticing the changes, and we thought maybe it's because of the death, maybe we thought maybe it's just grieving. And then now later on, that's when we found out. But during that year, in 2012, when he was diagnosed, he went through so many experts, neurologists, to find out exactly what this is. And then now he found out that it was Parkinson's, but he didn't really, it was on the down low because now the shift was on somebody else. Yeah.
You know, what kind of a father was he, you know, before and after, so that we understand the change in terms of the person that he became after he was diagnosed with Parkinson's? I mean, around the house, you know, in terms of the activity that he used to engage in, and how the condition changed him from a family's perspective.
Generally, he's an introvert. He's not really a social person, but he's a very active person when it comes to like household duties and communicating inwardly, like with the immediate family and also with the siblings and just the extended family. So the change was he became more closed. He became a bit isolated, because also Parkinson's, most people don't understand, because it's an outward appearance, so they don't really understand, because also it affects the speech and how he socializes. So it really closed him off in terms of engagement. Also performing just regular duties, as I said, even just going to bed and making the bed, those small tasks became such a big thing. Yeah, even just going out on going for walks. He never used to do that, so he just became like a hobbit completely. Yeah.
All right. Daktari, you know, does it just affect people at advanced age, or we've had cases that it can even be diagnosed in you know, young people? And I was also looking at some interesting you know, text that was suggesting that men are mostly affected compared to women. Maybe just to run us through the demographics and the people who are more at risk or more vulnerable to this particular condition, the Parkinson's disease.
Okay. Right. So, yes, it's more prevalent amongst the male population than female, by about maybe 2 to 1. But at the same time, you can get young onset Parkinson's. We have what is called the young onset Parkinson's, and then the late onset. The late onset, of course, are the majority of the patients. Currently, I actually have 3 patients. The first one I diagnosed at the age of 34 years of age. And these are genetic causes. We have genes that actually predispose to development of Parkinson's, passed down in the generations, could skip generations. And you just need to have a high index of suspicion. Because as Stephanie is saying here, initially you think they're just slow and the patients, your loved ones are just withdrawn. But Parkinson's tends to have what are called the non-motor symptoms and the motor symptoms. So earlier on, before even you realize that your loved one is slow, is speaking very softly, and they look blank, because they do develop a blank face, what we call facial hypomimia. So you find that they're just not engaging, they don't have expressions on their faces, their voices become very slow. So even in public, where before some are public speakers, they now shy away from speaking in public because they cannot be heard. So they want to stay behind closed doors where nobody will ask them, what's wrong with your voice? And then they start to walk very slowly and they are bent over. But the non-motor symptoms, which begin about 5 years before the real features, which we can all see, are features like mood lability. They could get depressed, they become withdrawn, difficulty in turning over in bed. They begin to get things like constipation. They may have problems with their heart rates. And just generally, they get very fatigued. And then bowel habits also begin to change. So about 3 years down the line now, you notice the tremor. Actually, the tremor is what brings it now forward to the loved ones, that there's something wrong with dad or mom, and usually it's one-sided. It's what we call a pill rolling tremor. So you find that the thumb and the finger just shake. And then with time now, they become stooped, they bend forward. It also affects sleep. In addition to not being able to turn over in bed, they begin to have very vivid dreams. And what we ask, I can see Stephanie shaking her head. What we ask
She's
the spouse,
agreeing, like, yeah.
We ask the spouse, have you ever received a kick or a blow when you're asleep? And sometimes they come into the hospital almost at a bone of contention. And it's so sorry that it's actually the disease process and there's not much public awareness. So this is what we call dream enactment. Vivid sleep, vivid nightmares, very vivid dreams. They act out their dreams. They could actually kick and fight, some fall off the bed. And then this is what we eventually call the rapid eye movement behavior disorder. So it affects a lot of things. And with time, by the time the disease is now getting to the 5th year, you find that the tremor now starts to affect the opposite side. The stiffness now affects the opposite side, and memory starts to become a problem. So they now start to become forgetful, misplacing items. Someone who's very careful with their things, meticulous, where they put their keys, meticulous with their finances, their PIN numbers, banking details, they can no longer remember. And if you find your mom or your dad with sticky notes on the fridge, or carrying small books every night, it starts to realize there's something.
Remind them of things.
So it's only when the motor symptoms check in that now it becomes apparent to the people around them that
it could be
Parkinson's.
All right. I know you will weigh in, Stephanie, but let me just also to hear from you, George, what Daktari is describing in terms of the symptoms. You've lived with this condition for 12 years. What has been for 13 years, yeah? What has been some of the challenging moments, you know, just borrowing from what she has shared, some of the things that you go through that are challenging for you as a warrior, somebody who's living with Parkinson's?
Oh, the first one is I've become a stranger myself. I don't like seeing people. I take time to respond to any action.
So you become a stranger in the sense that you don't recognize people, or?
No, I don't like being with people.
Or you like isolating?
Isolating myself.
You like isolation. You like your space.
Yes.
Right now. Okay. In terms of sleep, do you experience some difficulties when you're sleeping? Any complications?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Deep sleep. Every night I have a dream. Every night I have a different dream. So your sleep is also interfered with? It is.
All right. What about how you relate with your children, you know, at the family level, the things you used to do as a family? Do you find it easier for you to do these days?
Most of the times I'm alone. And I feel okay.
That's how you prefer? Okay, okay. So Stephanie, just to help Dad on that, the disease seems like it has totally changed who he was and the things that he used to do. And you heard also from Daktari how she was mentioning some of the symptoms and the things that people who are managing this condition are going through. And you are really shaking your head because you seem to be coming from a point of experience and knowledge. Maybe just share with us more about those challenges and those symptoms that have affected him most. I know maybe not all symptoms apply to all patients, but the ones that touch on what Dad has gone through for the 13 years he has battled this.
Actually, I was just checking the box. I was like, check, all the symptoms. I was like, you know, the mobility, the nightmares, the slowness of speech, the withdrawnness, all that because the dopamine levels are really low. And also, you know, when he says he wants to be isolated, he doesn't want to be with everyone. Because of the low dopamine levels, there's the depression that comes with it. So there's that as well. I would say this because I have been his primary caregiver since he officially retired, and I had to be like his crutch. With that, I have been like the only social contact. I've been like his best friend at this point. So he'd experienced things like bowel movement, constipation. So you see, those are the things he can't even go to social events because now he's experiencing things like bowel movement and constipation, and he's now very picky on what he needs to eat because of the tremors, the slight tremors or the shaking. He can't even hold a plate or like eat properly, the spoon, like just normal people, how normal people do and behave, like eating, like just drinking, that's the normal cup. That is very strenuous. Eating, like that is very strenuous. So the small tasks, even just dressing up, putting on the shoes, grooming, things of that nature, they become very taxing for him. So as a caregiver, you end up doing everything. You cook the food, you serve, you clean the dishes, you do almost every other activity for them. But it doesn't mean that they can't do anything. But with practice, and then just...
Yeah. But how did you become this efficient, though? Because I'm trying to imagine, not everybody is as lucky as George is to have somebody like you in their lives. I want to understand whether during that time that he was diagnosed and during the treatment, did you get an opportunity to also get to learn about it, to be able to be involved so that you know exactly what you need to do? Because if you don't have that level of knowledge, then you wouldn't know how to respond to some things that probably he would be showing in terms of symptoms.
That's so true, actually. Yeah. So when he was diagnosed, and he really tried to educate me, he really did, but maybe I didn't want to engage.
At that time?
Yeah, at that time, at the early onset, I didn't want to engage, and he used to, send me resources via email to go through them. He's like, just learn about this, just learn about this. But when he officially retired from work, that's when now things became serious, and I had to educate myself. As Nduta normally says, ignorance is not cute. So I had to also educate myself on what Parkinson's is, because we used to call it shida ya nerves. It says shida ya nerves, but now I had to educate myself what, in terms of nutrition, exercise, sleep patterns, medication, taking into the hospital, all those things. Now I had to become like a doctor, I had to become a nurse, I had to become a daughter, a mother,
and a friend.
And a friend, all those things. So education is really, really important. That's why awareness is key and very important.
And that's what we're doing here, because you could be watching this morning and you have a parent, you have a mother, you have a dad who probably is showing these symptoms, and you as a family just thinking maybe it's old age, or you're just brushing it off. It could be something that needs to be checked so that you know how to better manage. And of course, having caregivers who have the knowledge to be able to respond to some of these symptoms is very key. And I don't know, George, did you know about Parkinson's before your diagnosis?
No.
Did you have information about it before? No. So that lack of information also affected you?
Quite.
You had to learn about it?
Yes.
Yeah. You had resources. Did you used to go online just to learn?
I used to go online. That's where I came across the group of Parkinson's. And I joined the group. And now we're involved. We're involved in spreading awareness
about it.
Yeah.
All right. At least that support group really helps. And Daktari, just to weigh in on that particular aspect, at least for them, they got the diagnosis within the year that he began to show some symptoms. But others would take forever. There are so many people out there who are not diagnosed. They're in the villages. Some are just in families, in houses somewhere, showing these obvious symptoms, but nobody seems to be knowing exactly what the problem is. Talk to us about the crisis of misdiagnosis or delayed diagnosis, and how big of a problem it is, and how this Parkinson's disease is diagnosed. How do you get to identify that this is actually the condition we are dealing with?
Thanks. So both are actually a challenge, both misdiagnosis as well as delayed diagnosis. In fact, my young patient, the 34-year-old, was brought in by his mother because they thought he had a stroke. He seemed to be weaker on one side. But when you examined him, you find that when you make him walk, these are practical tips for family and caregivers. When your loved ones walk, you find that one arm and the leg on the same side seem to have a slower swing. So when you have your leg stride, this arm, I know those are not things we take into account, because these are things we take for granted. When you're well and you're walking, you don't really think about how you're walking. But now when you develop Parkinson's, you realize that when you're walking, one leg is able to move faster and take larger strides than the other one, and one arm swings normally, the other one is literally very stiff and by your side. And then the whole body is very rigid and you're stooped forward. And when you look at your loved one's face, many times when we asked the loved ones, what do you think about your dad's face? Was he always this unexpressive? The face is literally almost bland. They have no expression. And then their voice is very soft, and that all changes. So misdiagnosis is a big thing. And one other thing is that we still do have stigma in our country. A lot of these conditions, be it Parkinson's, be it dementia, the neurological conditions, people tend to be kept at home thinking that they're just growing old. When we were younger, how many times do you hear our grandparents being told they're just old now? But now you find that if you're able to diagnose it early, just by picking up these key signs and the loved ones opening up, our parents are still a bit old school. They don't want to trouble us as their offspring, as their children. So they hang on to their symptoms, and by the time you pick it up, it's a bit more advanced. So if they could come and get the diagnosis early, there's treatments that we are able to begin to ameliorate and take care of some of these symptoms. For instance, like George has told us, some of the life-changing symptoms are just the slowness itself, the inability to move, getting up from a chair. I mean, you just wake up and you go. Getting up from a chair is a problem. They wake up very slowly, starting to initiate walking the steps. They take very small shuffling steps, and the speed only picks up as you continue. When they get to doorways, especially if the disease is progressed, they go through what is called fascination. It's almost like they're stuck at the doorway. And then when you tell your loved one or your patient to turn, normally how many steps do you take turn? You normally just turn and go back where you're going. But patients who have Parkinson's will turn almost like a train. You take about 5 steps before you turn. And then the other thing we really worry about is frequent falls. They tend to fall frequently. And most times they'll fall backwards and sometimes even forwards, even without anything tripping them. Why? The gait is affected, the posture is affected, they're very unstable. So those are things that really affect them. They are very rigid, they tend to fall a lot, they are very slow, speech is affected, mood is affected, memory is affected. It touches on almost all domains of who you stand for as a person, your dignity as a person.
And you're saying the longer it takes for you to get diagnosed, the worse it gets.
It progresses.
It progresses, it becomes worse.
Yes, we have what are called the stages, technically, and it starts first in an area called the substantia nigra, and then with time, you find that now it spreads to other areas, frontal parts of the brain, temporal parts, even posterior parts of the brain. So catch it early, start the treatment early. And treatment is dopamine that is made in the lab, it's prepared. So it's called Cinemet, and we give it, and there are also many other names. It's a combination of 2 in 1. So there's the main dopamine molecule, and then there's a drug that stops the dopamine from being broken down in the circulation before it gets into the brain. So it ensures that you get delivery of most of your dopamine to the brain. And because we're now giving you dopamine, you find that by the time you give it to the patient, I know Stephanie will agree, within onset time of onset is 30 minutes to 1 hour. You find that now your loved one is a bit faster. They'll actually take it. As soon as they take the drug, they walk faster, they are more productive, speech production is better, volume is better, and they are less stooped. But the thing with dopamine is that it wears off very fast. Within 3 to 4 hours, it's already wearing off. That's why now we do frequent dosing. You can start off, but you start slow first and build it up, because dopamine itself has side effects. You find that your loved one starts to become a bit more drowsy, more somnolent, and with time, the body now acclimatizes. They could get GI, gastro side effects. For instance, a bit of bloating could make the constipation worse. They could get nauseated, but there are drugs we give to counteract those particular side effects as the body is getting used to the medication. And then with time, you continue to increase the drug and increase the frequency up to a point where now you think you're labda is a bit more comfortable and can live a productive life.
Productive life. I'll come back. There's still more that I want to explore when it comes to the treatment of Parkinson's. But Stephanie, also run us through, what point Dad began his treatment journey. What happened, and what was he put under? What therapies and what was done to manage his condition, and how are you supporting that with what you are doing at home to ensure that it works?
Okay, for management, I would say when he was officially diagnosed with Parkinson's, it was just the medication only.
Yeah.
And as Dr. Ari has said, the doses have been upped over the years.
You start with a small
Start with a small, as the doctor has prescribed. Could start with half or quarter, or because right now we're up to 3 doses per day. Yeah, but over the years, mostly it has been medication, and because because Dr. has mentioned about the falling and the stiffness and some other symptoms have really affected him to the point of that he has been in and out of hospital. So in that, there's the need of physical therapy, as well as things like speech therapy, which we get from the support group, because also the speech is impacted. Another thing also is physical exercise that is also in the management of the treatment, because they really have to keep their body moving, up and down, even just walking, up and down, sitting up and down, jumping, all just different, certain but different forms of exercise that really help them in their mobility. So medication, I would say, first of all, it's very expensive. And most of the patients right now, they're up to 3, 4, some others up to 6. And you'd find that over the counter with a prescription, one goes for 80 shillings. So you see, it's very expensive.
That's per day.
One.
Just one, and you need like up to 6.
There's some patients who take up to 6, and there's some other doses as well to counter the negative side effects that come with it when you take the Cinemet, for example. So it's very expensive, I would say that, in terms of like the medication. Yeah, okay. But I would say so far it's just been medication, physical therapy, physical exercise, and nutrition. Those are how managing, and also nutrition as well. It has to be specific kind of foods, because of Parkinson's comes with as she has mentioned, the constipation and the bowel movement. So you need to eat certain types of food, fruits. There's a complete, there's a specific diet that comes with it, but all has its challenges in terms of cost. Yeah.
How has the outcome been? She has taken us through the kind of treatment and therapies that you're currently undergoing, but you can share with us, George, in terms of outcomes. How are you feeling, since you started your treatment journey to now? How have things changed for you? How are you feeling now?
Well,
are they helping you, and are they, relieving some sort of symptoms for you?
Well, it has not been easy to adopt. But right now I've adopted to most of their conditions.
So it took some sort of getting used to for you.
Yes.
To be able to get used to this new lifestyle of being under treatment and all.
Yes. I make sure I go for treatment every time. I feel like a change in my system.
All right. I like how you choose to describe yourself as a Parkinson's disease warrior. Means you you're really trying to manage this condition the best way you know. We have so many people out there, George, who probably are battling this condition, and it's a condition that threatens to sort of like stall you, to stop everything that you're doing, to isolate you and keep you in some small corner of the world. And there are so many people who've yielded to that. Families have also, due to stigma, have forced them to that particular corner, and they are really just somewhere there, lost in their own small world, not able to do anything or even, you know, be part and parcel of any activity in the society. But you're out here, you're part of a support group, creating awareness, coming to shows like this to even just speak out and say that here I am, I have Parkinson's disease, and I'm here to tell you that it's actually a condition that can be managed. And I want to understand where you draw your inspiration from. What keeps you going? Why do you do what you do?
When I got retirement, I decided to fight.
So after retirement, that's the season in your life that you decided that it's now time for you to fight this particular condition. It's not going to put you down.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've managed to reach out to other people with Parkinson's, encourage them?
Through our group.
Yeah.
We've managed to do a lot.
Okay.
But I would urge people. I know there are many people out there who have the disease, but they don't know about it.
Yeah.
Like me, I had to undergo diagnosis by a lot of doctors, and all of them gave me a wrong diagnosis.
So misdiagnosis several times before you got the real diagnosis.
Yes, that's why I know there are many other people out there who have it, but they don't know they have it. And I would urge all any parent or any person with such symptoms to go out for a checkup.
All right. That's a good clarion call, you know, coming just a few days before we mark the World Parkinson's Disease Day. I mean, it's time for you, in case you parent, your caregiver, or yourself even, you know, you're beginning to see some of the symptoms we have talked about right here on the show. Maybe it's time to go get checked. You just never know. You may just be able to save yourself a lot of complications that come with delayed diagnosis or misdiagnosis of Parkinson's disease. And coming back to you, Daktari, when you talked about treatment, and I caught from what Stephanie was sharing that the dose keeps increasing and I'm wondering, how does that work? Because ordinarily you'd think that as the patient progresses, the doses
gets smaller and smaller.
Yeah, smaller and smaller. Why is it that in the case of Parkinson's, the dose is increased? And also tell us the treatment. What is the goal of the treatment? I want it to be very clear out there for people to know, this treatment, is it to really cure, you know, or is it to manage? Because Parkinson's is also another condition that you're gonna tell us probably whether the treatment is to treat it completely, or what is it for? What is the objective?
Thank you so much, Amy. So I'll touch on the treatment, and then later on I think I'll touch a bit on what George here has addressed, which is a big concern and thorn in the flesh for patients and their families. So as concerns treatment, it's true the treatment doses keep on increasing. We start with a half once a day, and then you progress to a half twice, and a half 3 times, and then you move on to 1 tablet and half, 1 half, slowly. So you increase every dose by a half a tablet, so that the patient is slowly graduated onto the treatment and you avoid the side effects. Because once they get the side effects, most of them cannot tolerate it and they lose out on that particular drug. And the reason why the dose keeps on increasing is because Parkinson's, just like so many other neurodegenerative conditions, why do we call them neurodegenerative? it's a particular part of the neuronal system that is degenerating, that is breaking down, that you're losing out on chemicals which are necessary for day-to-day life. So it goes without saying that the degeneration progresses. Just like dementia, we had a webinar on dementia. In the last 2 weeks, we've had a lot of exposure. These structures continue to degenerate, so it means that you need more and more drug levels and drug doses to try and counteract the side effects. And with time, there's also a particular maximum of levodopa, dopamine, at which you can give. Because if you go beyond 1 gram in a day, which is almost 10 tablets, and most patients don't reach there because they start to develop other side effects now related to the medication itself. When you find your loved ones start to have these movements, fleeting movements, they are fidgety, they can't sit still, it's time to check your dopamine level. It means that the levodopa now is at a level where you need to step back and think of introducing a different drug. So other drugs, like she said, work at the receptors. So they make the receptors where the levodopa is being absorbed more receptive to the levodopa you're giving. We also have other drugs that work on other systems, anticholinergic, because all these are chemicals in the brain. You're basically trying to stimulate this brain to produce chemicals that keep you on the go, that keep you as normal as you can be. So you find that a patient could actually be on 3 or 4 drugs. And remember, these are our elderly patients. They're our fathers, mothers, geriatric population. Parkinson's is not the only thing they have. They probably have diabetes. They have hypertension. So you'll find someone with a pill box. In fact, my patients tell me I have to take a bowl of pills in the morning. So pill burden also becomes a problem because a lot of them find it's not exciting for them to have to take like 10 tablets of pills in a day, and all of them will interact with each other. They'll all have side effects. They'll affect other systems of the body. But if they don't take it, their life just comes to a standstill. So one of the things that we're really trying to work with, and we did this with Alzheimer's in the last 2 weeks, is to try and get our government on board. We now have, through the office of the DP, we had someone who came in, Dr. Mercy, to sit in our groups, and we're trying to engage the government to be involved in policy making. We start to make policies that will actually get our organizations involved in terms of how do we support the patients who are living with Parkinson's? How do we support Multiple Sclerosis Society of Kenya? How do we support Parkinson's Society? How do we support Alzheimer's Dementia Society of Kenya? Where do we get funding for patients from? Not all patients can afford, and those are the bottlenecks to diagnosis. Other than misdiagnosis, there's late diagnosis. Why? Not everyone can afford to go and see a specialist. And the truth of the matter is conditions like Parkinson's and other neurological conditions can only be diagnosed by a neurologist. And you know how many we are for 50 million Kenyans? We are only 18. 18? 18.
In the entire
country. Majority,
I assume
most are in Nairobi. And then we have probably 3 or 4 in Mombasa and about 2 in Kisumu. So somebody coming from Turkana, Western Kenya, Eastern, Central, if they don't come to Nairobi or they come across a doctor who has had contact with us, that's why especially in the era of COVID, we really worked on webinars, virtual meetings, invite doctors, talk about a topic, try and empower our medical officers, try and empower our physicians who've graduated with internal medicine on how to diagnose Parkinson's, start off some level of treatment, and refer patients who are deemed to be difficult or complicated. So misdiagnosis comes about and delay in diagnosis because we don't simply have the medical personnel that is educated. And a lot of training for the longest time has been overseas. You have to drop everything in Kenya, leave your family, go get your training abroad. I got mine in London, and then you come back now to start a practice here. Secondly, resources. In terms of diagnosis, the definitive Parkinson's is a clinical diagnosis, like I've told you. So there are clinical features you'll see in your patients that tell you, I think we could be dealing with Parkinson's here. Other than Parkinson's, there are other types of what we call Parkinson plus or atypical Parkinson's. Present the same way, but not exactly the same pathology. A lot of the patients and their families will know multiple system atrophy, PSP. Now, for this, you need an MRI brain scan because you need to differentiate them. Why? These other Parkinson's plus, they start on both sides, as opposed to Parkinson's, which starts on one side. The symptoms tend to be more serious. A lot of patients will have problems with swallowing from the word go. They'll have problems with breathing. Mood is a bit more of a problem than Parkinson's itself. So awareness needs to be created out there. We need to probably have public awareness campaigns, get to the machinanis. We are few, but get...
And break it down.
And break it down to people that they exactly, that this is a disease, and you need to bring your loved one forward and then get rid of the stigma.
All right. In terms of treatment, is the treatment to manage or to completely treat it so that do we get to a point where somebody is healed? I want us to demystify that.
Yes. Yeah. So the treatment is actually to manage.
To manage.
You're giving levodopa to make them a bit more lighter, able to speak louder, walk faster, try and get better sleep, improve the mood, basically improve the quality of life.
All right, all right. So there you have it. I mean, there is no like a complete treatment, but you can actually improve the quality of life of that particular patient through proper treatment, and that should be complemented with the therapies that you are talking about: physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, and even just being part of a support group where that person can be part and parcel of a family that understands what they are going through, and they can share their experiences and encourage each other. And you never know, I mean, their quality of life could just be improved. As we're just about to wrap up, Stephanie, it's all about awareness and making clarion calls. And one thing that I want us to end with, just having talked about, is eradicating stigma. I don't know whether as a family you faced any sort of stigma from maybe society, people who didn't understand what was happening to your father, and in what nature did it come, and what would you like to tell the public out there? There are so many families who are in a situation such as yourself, and they're facing that stigma. Talk to us about, you know, your own experience and what you'd like them to do going forward.
Yeah, definitely stigma is there when it comes to Parkinson's, because it affects the outward experience. It changes their posture, it changes their movement. Like my dad also experienced drooling, so things that are not acceptable within the society. We have faced stigma, especially in our neighborhood, where we live, in our society. In our community. In our community, we have faced that. There's some sort of alienation that comes with it, because now also my dad can't use public transport, cause alone, especially alone. Because there's that, you know, mzee, harakisha, because also, as you have seen, it takes time also for him to respond. It takes time for him to do a lot of things. So even in the support group, they are given a card. Whenever they face that issue, they can just remove the card and say, hi, I'm a Parkinson's disease patient. I have problems with responding, have problems with movement. So that kind of placard helps in terms of advocacy, in terms of awareness. Yeah. So what I would say right now, there's growing advocacy in the social media, where we have one of us advocating and sharing. Some of us are sharing their stories online about Parkinson's, early onset and the late stage onset. So, and you could see how the social media world, they're receiving that, there's that stigma of this disease is for the rich people, this disease is for the white people, this disease, because of the difference of it. So what I would just say is just listen, educate yourself, just listen. Mostly, number one, listen. And educate yourself before you respond or make any comment concerning the people who are sharing their lives online or even offline. Just listen and educate yourself.
All right.
Yes.
Well said, Stephanie. George, your final word as we close. What would you like to tell people out there as we finish the program?
I want to tell people out there that we live. Mm-hmm. We live. Mm-hmm. And they should not be scared to come out and live with us.
All right. Don't be scared. Come out. I mean, he's here. He's a living testimony that actually you can come out and you can be part and parcel of the ordinary activities in the society. True. Quite inspiring. And happy birthday, George.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Dr. your
Just
final
one
word.
last thing is on Stephanie and her team, the caregivers.
Yeah.
The caregivers go through what we call caregiver fatigue and burnout. That's something we all forget to look at. So you're constantly on the beck and call, taking care of your loved one day and night. As the disease progresses, they become more dependent. They need help with dressing, with feeding, with being taken from point A to B. And we tend to forget the caregivers. So there are support groups, there are focus groups for them, and we also tell them, ask for help. As a family, of course, finances are a problem, but you will need someone to help you. You cannot do it alone.
All right.
Both physically, mentally, emotionally. Get someone else to do. Take turns so that you can take some time off for yourself, recharge. Don't feel guilty about someone else taking in and then come back again when you're recharged. The patient is taken care of better.
True, true. Thank you so much. Like a friend of mine always likes saying, you can't give from an empty cup. You need to also take care of yourself so that you can be able to give better. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for the work that you're doing for your dad and for all the caregivers out there who have people who are managing chronic conditions. We really, really, really do not take that for granted. Your families, appreciate that. Stephanie Muraya, a caregiver, daughter to George Muraya, Parkinson's disease warrior. And I've also been having this conversation with Dr. Sylvia Mbogo, a consultant neurologist at the Aga Khan University Hospital. Asante sana, ladies and gentlemen, for creating time. And that's how we wrap it up this morning. Thank you for watching Daybreak. There's a lot still that you're working on for you as a team, from our news desk to the programming. Please keep watching Citizen TV. But for now, it's a wrap. Have a lovely day ahead.